Yesterday we worked on a project for about 5 hours. And that project was to relocate the stage inside a tent out in a field in the middle of nowhere. But there was a project under the project that we couldn't do what we set out to do until we undid what had already been done and started over again. And I know that sounds really confusing, but I'm going to tell you today there are a whole lot of people who are 2 or 3 stories into building the legacy of their life, and they've never asked the question, what is the substance of the foundation that I'm building on? And that's what I want to talk about today. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders, and I want you to know there are a lot of people who build something. Maybe they build their wealth. Maybe they build their family legacy. Maybe they build celebrity. Maybe they build notoriety. And maybe it's that best-selling book. They just wanted to get to that best-selling book status. In fact, I know many people who have paid the money to become bestsellers. And yet, once they get that one accomplishment or that set of accomplishments, they find that everything else around them falls apart. See, there are a lot of people who built their entire life around fame or fortune. They want the wealth. They want the success. They want everything in the trappings of I've done well in life. Maybe it's the right car, the right house, the right spouse, the right number of kids in the right kind of school with the right kind of degree programs. I know a lot of people who have built their life around the idea that I'm the first one in my family to go to college, and by golly, my kids are going to college whether they need it or not. And that kind of philosophy, that idea, is fine as far as setting goals. It's fine as far as having a determination and having the discipline to pursue it. All that's good. It's nice to have goals that are lofty enough that they force you to challenge yourself. In fact, it's very important that your goals not be so easy you can achieve them by yourself, but difficult enough that they cause you to stretch and involve other people in your goals. If you can do it by yourself, as John Maxwell says, the dream isn't big enough. But it's also an entirely different thing to set those dreams, those goals, those ambitions up as your foundation. See, this project we were working on yesterday for close to 5 hours was to remove all of the equipment for the band off of the stage, lift up the stage and reconfigure it so that it would be wider, positioned differently in the tent, and have a little more walking space in the front. Well, the challenge is, it's a stage in a tent, not on concrete, on the ground. So if you take a stage section that weighs about 185 pounds by itself and you set it on the ground, it's probably going to sit there okay. Until one of a few things happens. A, someone steps on it. Then what happens? Well, those little feet, they sink right down into the ground. And so now you have an uneven stage. It's not going to be level very long if people step on that corner but not this corner, and one side sinks and the other side doesn't. And it becomes really ugly really fast. Well, there's 12 of these stage sections. Well, the other thing that can happen, obviously, is it rains. And even though the rain is kept off from above by the tent, we know rain in Texas, it tends to wash things away. So it could come right under the edges of the tent and right underneath the edge of the stage. And then, even if nobody's standing on it, that 185-pound weight of that stage is just going to sink like it's in quicksand. So what do you do about that? Well, that took some noodling. What we realized was we needed something on the ground that would keep the weight dispersed from all the feet of the stage so that it couldn't sink into the ground. But before we put something on the ground, we needed to figure out how to keep the moisture that was already in the ground from causing whatever we put on the ground, i.e. wood, from decaying or becoming paper mache and allowing exactly the same process to happen, only now we have more stuff to clean up. And so, yes, we laid down some plastic. Then we put down a board. Then we put down the stage section. Well, why did we do that? Because without a firm foundation, a solid foundation, a well thought out foundation, there's nothing to stand on. Oh, sure, we could have just laid the plastic and let the band stand on that. We could have even put the plastic down and then put the boards down and let the band stand on that. We could have just let the band stand on the ground. But really what we wanted to do was put them in a place where everybody could see them. We wanted them in a little bit of an elevated status. We wanted to make sure that the people could see the band even when they're sitting in the chairs. But in order to have them elevated, we had to start with a thin sheet of plastic. What am I saying? I'm saying that in your life as a leader, as a parent, an organizational leader, a team leader, a politician, you've got to have a foundation before you try to rise up to stand. You can't just step on the riser and expect the riser to do all the work. There's got to be something under it. And it doesn't always have to be the biggest boulder in the world. Of course, if you're building a tower, the higher it is, the deeper your foundation's got to go. The deeper it's got to go, the more solid the foundation has to be. Well, you can't dig a hole to bedrock and fill it with sand and call that a foundation. I mean, not practically. I know some people who use gravel and things of that nature to create a French drain under certain types of foundations, but if you're going to get to bedrock and put those piers in and then pour the concrete, you want it to be substance that's solid. When you build a stage, you can build a stage that supports a few thousand pounds with some plastic and some boards and some stage pieces and be okay. Now, if we were going to put a house on that, that'd be a whole different thing. Let me ask you this question, though, as a leader. What is the substance of the foundation that you're building on? Is it your dreams and goals, the ambitions that you have for yourself and those who come after you? Is that what you're building your foundation on? Or are you building your foundation on something that will outlast you, that already has proven to outlast you up to this point? See, there's a lot of substance in this world that is garbage substance. You ever driven by a landfill? You ever seen how they create this mountain that looks like a big, beautiful green mountain? I mean, they sod them, they cover them well, but what's underneath there is garbage. I mean, they're constantly releasing the methane gas and the other gases from underneath the mountain from all the stuff that's decaying inside it. You wouldn't want to build your house on top of that, would you? I mean, surely after a while, the weight of your house would sink you right into the garbage. But how often do we find that societies, cultures, families, relationships, religions, cults, even governments are built on a mountain of garbage, deceit and lies and trickery and corruption? Well, they're not going to stand very long. They might look good. They might be elevated to a high place. But if they're built on garbage, it's eventually going to decay. And when it does, the mountain is coming down. See, drive by those landfills on a regular basis, and what you'll see is that front end loader is always up there pushing the pile back again. Sure, they'll push the pile up, they'll pack the pile down, they'll burn off what they can, and then they'll throw some sod over it, so when you drive by, you don't see the garbage, you see the grass. But eventually it changes shape. It's coming down. And so it is with anything that you build that's built on a foundation of garbage. If you don't know what your core beliefs are, if you don't know what your core values are, if you build your life, build your foundation on something that's garbage philosophy, garbage thoughts, garbage economies, there's a whole lot of that stuff out there. Stuff that's been tried and proven for years only to fail. Repackaged, resold, and tried again. You know, if it's garbage and you recycle it, it's just going to become garbage again, right? There are very few things that go from garbage to solid substance. They go from garbage to something worthwhile to build on. If you're going to build a future for yourself, for those that you care about, if you're going to build an organization that requires of you sacrifice, that requires of you investment, financially, emotionally, relationally, educationally, if you're going to build something of substance in your life, you need to build that substance first. You need to figure out what that substance is made of. Has the idea stood the test of time? Will the things that you believe in, those core beliefs, will they pass the test when you're put under pressure? Finally, I want you to think of a palm tree. You see palm trees in the storms and the hurricanes, and you'll see them waving back and forth, these giant palm trees. And sometimes it looks like they could bend over and touch the ground. They're really skinny at the top, though, and they've just got a few leaves up there, and it's almost like they're just a stick, but they bend forever. Why is that? Well, because those palm trees from the time they were planted there have withstood the storm. Winds from every direction. You see them on the islands. We saw them when we were in Galveston a few weeks ago. The wind would whip them back and forth. They would bend and bow and stand right back up again. Because they've stood the test of time. They've stood through the storms before. The roots are deep, but the tree itself is flexible. Oh, it's strong, but it's flexible. What do you have in your life of substance to build your foundation on? Are there things that you hold on to, things that you believe that are strong like deep roots, that have been around for a long time? They've been through the storms of life and proven to be firm, proven to be held on to, proven that they can stand the test of time. And yet flexible enough to say, I know there's change coming, but I can handle the change. I know there's going to be a storm coming, but I can handle the storm. I can survive through this. If you haven't thought through that process for your own life as you're building a foundation, you need to ask yourself, what is that foundation? Now, for me in my house, that foundation is the Bible. We start with what I believe to be the most solid of foundations, what I believe to be the solid rock. Oh, sure, sometimes those ideas that are found in the Bible, they fly in the face of common culture. There are thoughts and ideas that are in the Bible that are older than our American history by far. Thoughts and ideas that outdate most of what we would call modern civilization and go back to ancient civilizations. There are even ideas in the Bible, foundational ideas of how to run a government. Yeah, they're really there. I mean, they were there before America was here. Ideas on how the king should treat his people, or how the local rulers, the local governors should treat their people, how taxes should be handled. It's in there. Believe it or not, it's in there. It's in the Bible. Before there was an America, there was a Bible, and it already had ideas on taxes and leadership. Really did. That's what I put my foundation on. And there are times that causes me to run against the storm, if you will. To say, I know the winds of change are blowing politically. The winds of change are blowing societally, culturally, financially. The ways of education have completely changed since I was in elementary school. But the ideas of how to educate a child that are in the Bible, they still work. Oh, a lot has changed, but those still work. And whatever your foundation is, I just want to ask you, have you chosen a foundation that if you dig far enough back, you realize it has changed? Your foundation has changed half a dozen times. I'll remind you that Bill Maher, not exactly a Bible-leaning kind of a guy. Bill Maher said, those ideas that you're promoting in your high schools and colleges today, those ideas are 100 years old and they failed back then. Is that what you want to build your foundation on? An idea that's 100 years old, but it was a failure then? See, that's that landfill, that dump, that garbage heap. It looks pretty on the outside for now, but the minute you put weight on it, the minute you put some pressure on it, the minute you see what's on the top of that lofty hill, where the methane gas is escaping and what's inside is rotting and decaying, you're going to find that that's not a foundation you wanted to build on. Unfortunately, some people build an entire city there, or at least their fiefdom, their kingdom, on the top of a landfill, before they realize what's under there is not substance that you want for your foundation. Let me challenge you as a leader to ask yourself the question, have I questioned my core values? Have I questioned my core beliefs? Have I questioned the things that I build myself upon? Have I questioned them enough to know, will they stand when the storm comes? Will they stand the test of time, or are they already in decay? As you build the foundation that your life will be built on and the people around you, have you taken the time to make sure the substance of your foundation will last? That's my challenge for you today. I'm J Loren Norris with Leading Leaders Podcast, or Tell It Like It Is TV. Have a blessed day. Subscribe now for our extensive video library of leadership lessons promoting faith, family, and freedom.